Thanks very much. Sorry, firstly, I'd like to introduce Jenny Agutter here, and then we have Heidi Forrest, who's going to talk to you anywhere at all, and then we have Pippa Harris, our executive producer, and then Judy Parker, who'd like to also take a seat.
Fantastic.
And we also have Laura Main here as well. So,
Don't want to get water on anybody's face.
as I said before, we're going to be doing Pippa and Heidi with our lovely sisters here, and then we'll be moving on afterwards to any questions for our midwives. So, Judy's just.
She's a new midwife.
I don't know, is she coming in the next
Jessica's,
wave?
yes. We're doing sisters. We're doing nuns first of all, and then we're doing midwives. Sorry about that.
Pippa and I are honorary nuns.
Yeah, people who could be mistaken for nuns very easily.
So just to point out, definitely not nuns here in the middle. Sorry.
I did have a go of a wimple when we were in costume one day, but it didn't really suit me.
So anyway, now that we're ready, can we take questions from you, anybody?
I was amazed at the authenticity of the birth scenes. I just wonder what kind of what sort of trickery is involved, or what the case may be. I assume there was prosthetics.
But our director is here, Philippa. I think that's a question only you can answer. I really do.
Please feel free.
They were very low tech, actually, the birth scenes. We had a wonderful midwife called Terry Coates, who was there with us. She taught us, me and the girls up here, to actually deliver a baby in rehearsal. We had a week of rehearsal, and we actually sort of learnt how to deliver a baby. I think I could, if anybody goes into labour, I think I could actually deliver a baby now.
Be okay.
And we had fantastic prosthetic babies, and also lots of real tiny babies, and it was the job of the second AD to find women who were about to have their babies before they'd had them and say, please could you bring your baby to set on such and such a day. And then some of them would go into labour prematurely, or have, it was very
He couldn't
inconvenient.
understand it, could he? He'd say somebody else's waters have broken, and he'd be quite sort of put out.
Yeah. So they were,
prosthetic baby was disturbing too, because it was
so real. They were weighted to be like real babies, and so we had our new mums on set with their babies, and our lovely midwife, and so we just did a sleight of hand between the prosthetic baby and the real baby. But it was so important for these films to get that absolutely right, and thanks to our lovely midwife who helped us learn how to do it, we hopefully succeeded.
Thank you.
How does that? I mean, that was such an emotional thing to watch. I mean, how did you all feel filming that? I mean, and especially if you've had children yourself, how can not engage with something like that? But didn't you feel that all bubbling up to the surface when you were filming it?
There was some discussion about babies, actually. I find it really interesting. More men talked about having babies and their wives having babies than the women did. And that's a big difference in time from the 50s, because the late 50s men were not involved at all. But it was interesting on the crew, people, I remember when my child was born. They go into all the stories about it. Filming is always peculiar because you're a little bit removed from, you're not caught up in the story, you're caught up in actual moments. I don't do very much childbirth.
No, I've done it once. I think the same as Jenny. I watched. I think I've seen just about every birth on YouTube, because obviously I wasn't really paying attention when I gave birth myself. But it is just the most timeless of human experiences, and I think when I was first given the book by Pippa to read, it actually opens with Muriel's delivery. I think Jennifer very cleverly gave us a sort of standard birth, if you like, to show what conditions were like and what the world was like, and so I used that in the first episode. But there's actually a line that Jennifer herself put in the book, and it was the first thing in the book that brought tears to my eyes, and it's just the line that says, "How much can she bear? How much can any woman bear?" And you just thought, I remember thinking, I want to write this drama series, because for tens of thousands of years the most crucial event in human experience is one woman lying on a bed feeling completely alone, surrounded by other women who are praying that it will be all right. And I thought Jennifer captured that so beautifully in the book. I felt as though I and Pippa and Philippa, we were all on a mission to kind of make that continue to resonate through the drama, I think.
And actually Terry, who was our midwifery advisor and who had been in a way the inspiration for Jennifer to write down her memoirs.
Indeed.
She said that she still cries at almost every birth she goes to, and she found our fake births incredibly moving, and watching the tape she finds incredibly moving. Maybe she's just very emotional lady.
There is something extraordinary about the birth of a child, and again, in the time, it's you're looking at a very rough area of London in a difficult time post-war. But with every birth, there is this extraordinary feeling of hope, because it's a moment where you don't know what the life's going to be, and it's the vulnerable. It's a totally vulnerable little person coming into the world, and all your hope is that that's going to be wonderful, and you also know somewhere that there's going to be, you know, terrible things happening. It's going to be difficult. That whole life.
And
is
it's
going
the
to develop,
innocence
and
too, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
the
just-
absolute innocence.
It's just the most pure moment. It's an absolute
Yes.
clean sheet, isn't it? And all potential is there.
Laura, did you do any research? Is there anything or sorry?
You delivered some during the.
I
this.
I didn't get to do it. It is mainly the nurses, isn't it? But we watched, as can I say that the documentaries were very useful. I can't say that, but just, I mean, I haven't given birth, and I haven't, but maybe some of my friends are now. You know, I'm at that age now, and so I've got lots of friends that have babies. I've got 2 lovely little nephews, so you know, my sort of eyes are sort of opening to this sort of world, and it's something that, yeah, you know, it's not. It is often quite sort of kept. It's not spoken about, and it's great to see it now. Actually, you know, in drama, you don't often get to see it.
I think the thing that occurred to me on watching that was that it seems like the Middle Ages. You look back and you think, God, is this like 200 years ago? I mean, and it's really not all that long ago. And that's quite frightening, I think.
Another question. Sorry, that.
You mentioned before about the way men and women on set viewed it. Do you think this is something that will appeal more to men than women viewing wise, or
No.
will this appeal to?
It's not going to be football, you know.
I wouldn't say for a moment it won't appeal to men, but ultimately it's a drama about the female experience, and that presumably makes certain dictates. But no, I mean, all the men who've worked on the show have been incredibly into it. And one thing I noticed that was absolutely lovely on days when we had the new babies on the set, because they were really new, they were just a few days old, people would tiptoe and talk gently and quietly, and there was this wonderful sensitive energy. Now I think that the new man has a lot to be proud of, to be honest. I think, you know, maybe 20 or 30 years ago you wouldn't have got a man to watch an episode of this, and now I think it's going to be quite different.
Another question. Oh, David.
I mean, the first episode doesn't contain a hospital birth. I wonder if this is going to open a debate on home birth again. Any of you?
I hope so.
Yeah, it's interesting that, you know, this morning there was a second item on the news was about, you know, the woman's right to have a C-section now and the rise of caesareans, and one of the reasons seems to be that a lot of women don't feel secure enough, they don't feel they get enough of a midwife's attention to either give birth at home or give birth naturally. And, you know, I find that very telling that in some ways we look back and think, oh, that's so terrible, they didn't have pain relief, but in many ways they were very lucky, those women. They had, you know,
You have to
the
fight for a
midwives
home birth
visiting
now,
3 times a day,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes, yes, exactly. And no, I think there should always be debate around childbirth, don't you? And if drama, especially a sort of a popular drama, can contribute to that, or help people make more informed decisions, or if it even makes it easier for a husband and wife to discuss the sort of birth they want for their child, if it opens up those channels, I think that's really valuable. At the end of the day, it is a historic drama, but I think it probably does shed light on the present day, like most good period dramas would do, I think.
It's an interesting point, though, because one does sort of say, well, hopefully we could move back more towards the midwives for women, rather than the options in hospital, which, you have a midwife present, but it's not quite the same. You want that follow through. You want somebody who really does know you and know what you want to do.
Sorry, question here.
Did it encourage any of you to ask your own parents or grandparents what their experiences were?
I already had, which is one of the reasons I wanted to write the drama. I remember when I was having my son, my grandma was quite, she was quite old. She was in her early 90s, I think, when he was born. And she said, well, I hope you have a better time than I did with Warwick. That was her first. She said, I was 2 days hanging on to the mantelpiece because you would have your, and it was always that image of my grandma with the mantelpiece. It kept me going during a tough afternoon, I think. But interestingly, I was actually delivered by nuns. My mum chose to have me in a small private hospital in Liverpool because the alternative was the big municipal hospital that was considered to be quite brutal and not very clean. And so I was literally brought into the world by 2 women wearing wimples. And my mother was told not to remove her housecoat. It wasn't necessary. So everything was sort of, and this was only 1962. And so everything was completely different. And I remember her telling me that story and how when her labour slowed to a halt, she was told to get out of bed and go down the corridor and pray to a statue of St. Jared Magellan. And she said it did actually work, but that was probably because she was walking up and down the corridor. So I have always been very interested in the way human experience evolves over time. And as I said before, how things are timeless. But I did talk to my mum, and I've got another neighbour who gave birth in the 1950s living in rural Yorkshire, and they used to send a bus round every Friday, and if you thought you were likely to have your baby in the next week, you got on the bus and were taken to the hospital to sort of sit there and play cards, I suppose, until it arrived, because otherwise they couldn't guarantee you would get to the birthing centre. So most women of older generations than ourselves have a completely different story to tell. I think every 10 years it seems to change.
Oh, question here.
And for the actresses, how did wearing the wimples make you feel?
It was very releasing because there's certainly no question about what you're going to put on in the morning or what makeup is going to be on or any of those things. I mean, yeah.
So it was all right as long as you didn't look in the mirror. You spent a lot of time just...
Yeah, you had to, yes, exactly. You kind of got rid of all the sense of, which is quite right for the characters too. That's not something you're not thinking about. You don't stand in front with a wimple on, kind of preening yourself and seeing how you can make it look better.
You don't keep going into makeup and say, I think I need a bit more moustache.
It was like one less thing to sort of think about. It was quite sort of, as you say, releasing to sort of not be self-conscious about how's my hair, and they wouldn't have even entered their heads, and you just put it on and you're all the same and you just get on with what's important.
They were actually the real wimples from the real nuns who really were there. We went up to Birmingham and met the nuns who were now very elderly, and they gave us their wimple, which I modelled for the costume designer, and then she made them for the actresses, and so they're the very same uniform that was really worn.
They must have been quite practical because they're short. I suppose that's the thing. If you're wearing a long wimple and you're, as a midwife, you presumably bend over much of your time, it would kind of fall forward, wouldn't it? And things, because I thought they were so quaint. I love the photographs.
Question
Were they comfortable to wear?
The only thing that's peculiar about them is that you have a strap that's going across your ears and the cap on, and you actually get a little deaf. So, which is why probably nuns look quite vague a lot of times. They actually don't hear what you're saying, so they smile at you. And I got used to doing this. It was sort of, yes. But otherwise they come through.
This one's for the actresses as well. This is Miranda Hart's first dramatic role. I just wondered how you thought she got on.
I think she's going to be a revelation. I think she's absolutely wonderful in it.
She's certainly fun to be around. We had a really
Yes,
good
we
time
had
on
an
the set.
absolute ball.
When because of course she comes into the second episode, and we sort of, it was maybe a couple of weeks or so we were without her, and then when she arrived, it did just suddenly feel like the team was kind of complete, and it was because she's got such a great energy and just sort of made us all laugh, but very focused as well and absolutely brilliant in it.
And Cheryl Campbell plays her mother so delightfully. It's really wonderful. Very fun.
Yes, Vicky.
Hello. I don't think I've seen that many women on screen together, but I can't wonderful when I see that.
Yeah,
And
isn't it wonderful?
Yeah, and also, you know, all your team is female as well. So how is that in terms of working? Was it different? You know.
Well, you get sometimes you get female crews, but in fact we had a very male crew, so the balance on set was actually male-female because it was a basically male crew, wasn't it?
Apart from
but the
Philippa.
first three,
The help for the
yes,
first
was
three,
the
yeah.
directing the first three. Well, there's a different kind of discourse and things that happens, isn't there? Really, I guess when it's women's
I mean, to be quite honest, I don't really think there's enormous difference. It's just people who are very good at their job, doing their job, whether they're male or they're female. I don't think it matters. I mean, I sort of don't work with Philippa and think, oh, it's a woman, and I'm, you know, not going to. Don't think about it. You know, you either think she's bloody good, or you think, oh Christ, I mean, I can't. So really, the answer is I don't think it makes any difference. I mean, it's lovely to be with actresses who really don't have any egos. I mean, we had a whole group of actresses who were just so supportive of each other, and no sort of, oh, she getting better than I am, or nothing of that.
We just didn't have to worry about the costumes. Oh, she's got a better costume.
It was a very happy employment. Really was. It was great.
Laura, you got anything to add in terms of camaraderie?
Well, just what Judy says there. It was. I think the characters are so different, and you know, everybody has their little moment, and it was just. There was no competition. It was just lovely. It was
I was
really
impressed by the
lovely.
moments of singing on set that used to happen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why. I think everybody had a sort of similar drama training, and particularly when we went out places, we'd be in the church and suddenly we'd start with Climb Every Mountain, cause it's and then move on to the other musical numbers like Cabaret, which were less appropriate.
As a director, it was actually wonderful for me to work with a load of very strong women. I loved it. I thought it was wonderful. It's so unusual to get to do that, to work with a whole fleet of women. It was fab.
The only thing that I would say against it were there were too many young actresses in it. I did have quite a problem with that. And they were so good, that was even worse. You know, you couldn't think, oh, well, she's young and she's dreadful. She's young and she's wonderful. How disgusting.
It's great to see so many roles for mature actresses, because I'm sure it reflects the television audience as well. And I hope it sets a trend.
Yeah. No, it is. It's lovely to have good writing, good parts, and really, really lovely. Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Well, thank you very much. So, and we're just going to do a quick shift around now, and then we'll move on to our midwives. So thank you very much.
Oh, you can sit there.
To squash your back. It's just. Oh, it's all right. It's fine. It's fine.
So first of all, I'd just like to introduce Jessica here. But we're just waiting, sorry. Bryony here, sorry, and then I think Helen has gone outside, has she? Can you just get Helen for us? And Miranda's just on her way, and we can all get started talking about the wonderful world of midwifery. Actually, if you just want to start, I mean, if there are any questions while we're waiting, if you want to... No? We should sit here in silence, shall we? All right, okay.
Jessica, I know that this project is 2 years in the making or so. I don't know if you had any contact with Jennifer Worth at all, when you got to meet her or speak to her.
No, it was. I was really upset about it. That it was the day. I don't know. I think it was the day everything was locked into place, and it was definitely going to happen. And I was really excited about it. And along with that news was the news that Jennifer had passed away. So it was a really odd feeling, lots of feelings, and I was so looking forward to meeting her because I'd read the books years before I knew this was going to be made into a TV series. So I was a massive fan before, and I lived in East London and just really interested in this period as well, and what an amazing woman to have written this, and for it to have been such a massive hit, you know, from word of mouth. I was upset not to meet her, but meeting her family was important and good as well.
And she did see your photograph, didn't she?
Yes,
Yeah, which was lovely. Yeah, we made sure she saw it, and she approved mightily.
Good.
Oh no, she really did.
Yeah.
She really did.
Yeah.
I was saying some of the family actually came down. Or
Yeah, they were her husband Philip and her daughter and her granddaughters were on set a few times, sort of huddled around a monitor while we were doing our thing, and it's quite humbling actually. It wasn't. I was very excited about starting the whole project, and then you sort of get into the day-to-day. Okay, I'm going to work, and then for them suddenly to appear, it was like, oh, it was sort of sobering, and rightly so, because these are real people and real situations, extraordinary situations, and you really have to honour them, I think.
Okay, another question. Oh, yeah.
This must have been a very coveted role. Were you offered the part, or did you have to audition for it with many other actresses, or?
I auditioned for it. Don't know how many other actresses were.
I'm
not been
tell
told.
you.
No. So I had. It was the normal process with Andy Pryor, who is a fantastic casting director, and 2 auditions, and found out. Oh no! I got one phone call going, "Can you ride a bike?" I was like, "Why? What does that mean?" And then heard nothing for another week or so. So I was like climbing the walls, but and then found out, and was just very excited, and then scared.
What were you scared of?
I think I'd spoken to Philippa a bit in the audition, how I hadn't done much filming before, and I'd done theatre, and how I was actually kind of a bit scared of the camera because I'm so used to a live audience, and overcoming that would be a great thing, and then getting the role and sort of going, okay, I'm going to have to overcome it in a 6-part series it was just terrifying. But everyone was very supportive, and what was really good is that me and Bryony were in the same drama school together as well, so we were mates before anyway, so that was great. And there was a group of inexperienced, well, I was definitely inexperienced, and then this group of experienced actresses, and sort of Miranda in the middle, bridging the gap and making everyone laugh, you know, and it just worked really well. It just all clicked.
Bryony, because you've done a lot of theatre work as well, haven't you? How did you find the difference with theatre and moving into in television as well?
Yeah,
so you've done both.
Like Jess said, we were myself, Jess, and Helen were all in the same boat, so we were all learning every day, and in the car on the way home we'd be discussing things and what we could. So I'm jotting things down to remember for the next day, and about, I don't know, there's lots of things, you know, hitting marks and things which are quite simple when you know what you're doing, but at first that you're not thinking about the acting, you're just thinking about move here, stand there, pick that cup up. Especially the dinner scenes were hilarious with this awful onion soup. and then you'd on the first take you'd really go for it. You'd have loads of soup, bread, sandwiches, you know, pouring tea, and then you're like the next time you're like, oh my god, what order was everything? And 3 hours later you're stuffing the sandwich down. So that was fun. But you learn as you go.
Sorry.
Sorry, and now we have Helen George who plays Trixie as well.
You must have had quite intensive midwifery lessons, did you?
Well, as Philippa said, we had a week of, it was sort of blocking the births and going on, and also being introduced to this 1950s equipment, this quite scary looking Pinard, yes, and glass enema thing. So we got that week, and when I found out I got it, I watched a lot of One Born Every Minute. And what struck me was how different the births are, and also how amazing midwives are. And they just have to be this oasis of calm. And for Jenny, the character Jenny, to sort of be so inexperienced and sort of, act this calm, but absolutely just going, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. It was quite, you sort of realise how responsible you are in that situation. I don't know if I could really do it.
Be a midwife or have a child.
Either now. Too much information on having a child now.
No, that was my question. Do any of you have children? Does it put you off?
Do you want to? I mean, I don't know. What did you look at in terms of doing research as not having children? Were there any things that you looked into 1950s childbirth?
My niece is training to be a midwife, so went down to Winchester Hospital, and they all talked to me. They were all so excited. They all knew the books. They were delighted it was being made, and they were all was just thrilled about it. And they showed me a real placenta and things, which was great. But actually, it was kind of a privilege. It was sort of amazing, and it's huge. So it's really huge. It's huge. Well, this one was. And I don't know. I'm so broody. It's unbelievable, and it's made me even more so. I mean, yes, One Born Every Minute is sort of terrifying, but absolutely enlightening in the best way. I don't know. Yeah, I'm well up for it.
Any thoughts on childbirth?
Well, I suppose a lot of my friends are having babies as well, so I was sort of relating it to them and doing all my practice on them and tape measuring their bumps and all those sorts of things, and sort of said that I could deliver any of their children, which of course I probably couldn't in real life. And yes, I mean, I suppose it's really hit home the sense of the responsibility, because I've never really thought about it, and even for the midwives as well, having the control in the situation and the sense of what a vast thing it is in your life to have thrust upon you, or whatever the word is. So yes, not yet.
Sorry, anyone else? Oh, yes.
So what was it like working with the babies? Because they do say not to work with children.
The babies were fine. It was really beautiful.
It was wonderful, really wonderful. There's a story which particularly moved me when I was reading them. There's 3 stories we've amalgamated into one, about a white mother who has a mixed race child with a white husband, and there's one particular story which I think is episode 3, which is so moving, and I got to do it and I couldn't believe it. And my boyfriend's black and we would have a mixed race, and it was just holding him so beautiful. I really, it was so moving. And during the birthing sequences, we realised at the end, both Helen and I would feel quite faint because we got so involved and really,
so physical as well as a midwife. You don't realise.
Sort of forget to breathe a bit. And it was. But then, it was such a privilege actually to be trusted. With the parents next door, and to be trusted to hold them and things. It was wonderful, really wonderful.
Yeah, I noticed such a difference, which was quite appropriate, because at the beginning, we don't get to handle babies unless they're your own anymore, really, because families have moved and all of this. So I'm pretty inexperienced with handling babies, and so at the beginning, I'm a little bit like, oh God, don't drop it, and then I sort of felt this massive ease by the end, after 3 or 4 months, and you could just sort of scoop them up and flip them around, and I was like, oh, that's quite. It was really nice.
And we had these prosthetic babies the whole way through, and we were sort of taught to to treat them as though they were real babies. So we sort of got to practice with them first before we had the real things as well. And I mean, they were so wonderful and so real looking. It was quite a good start.
Any other questions? Oh, yeah.
There's a bit of a sort of resurgence at the moment with period drama, and obviously this will inevitably be compared to others that exist and so on. Have you thought about how successful it could be, and have you thought at all about comparisons that might be drawn with others?
Well, I don't think there can be that many comparisons, because yes, it's a period drama, and I think that's the basis comparison that you can make. But it is fundamentally about midwives, and there's nothing really, to my knowledge, that's been made about midwives. And I think, as Jennifer says in the at the beginning of the novel, they were the unsung heroes, and they still are, and they don't get enough credit. You know, since One Born Every Minute, they've sort of been thrust into the limelight slightly, but before that, there's been nothing on TV, and it's about time that they should be celebrated. And yes, it happens to be a story that's in the 50s, but I don't think you can compare them. They're very different to Downton and all of those things. Very different projects.
Question.
Brian, you mentioned that during the birthing things, you were basically getting very involved with what was happening. I mean, did having to sort of maintain that constantly throughout the series, was that quite emotionally draining?
I suspect more so for Jess. You had lots of births, didn't you? But it really, you would go home absolutely exhausted, just through concentration. And we found that we've both been practicing a lot on our boyfriends, so sort of measuring things to get them all in place and stuff.
Yeah.
And, this. And it was quite fun.
They were thrilled.
But yeah, I mean, I think filming anything, you have to be very concentrated, and so much happens while you're not on set, But all of the rehearsals you do yourself rather than with theatre. I was used to sort of wandering around a room for 5 weeks before having to present anything, so it was quite a challenge for me to do that on my own and quicker.
Could you explain a bit more about practicing on your boyfriends? Because what you're actually role playing the whole sort of.
Oh yeah, so he'd be lying on the bed
mother.
with the
Right, so
script.
he'd be the pregnant.
Yeah, he'd be the mother, and then we'd have a toilet roll as the penard and
pillow shoved up the t-shirt.
Yes, okay, so
God, I
get
never
that
did
from
that.
there.
Yeah. Legs open. That's as far as it went.
Getting in touch with his feminine side.
Indeed, yeah, they're really into it. Because they get sort of pampered a bit, It's nice.
Anybody else? Any other questions? How
did you all
James.
find it working with Miranda?
She's great.
Before she gets in, quick.
Yeah.
Was there any corpsing at all between takes?
I think the worst was Judy and
Judy
Miranda.
and
They
Miranda.
were awful.
Judy Parfitt and Miranda.
Yeah.
Pair of gigglers.
No, she was wonderful to work with. We had a really, really lovely time with her, and I think we've formed a strong bond between us young nurses. It was a great experience, and she's a wonderful actress. As
Yeah,
I'm
I think
sure
it'll
you've
be a
seen
real.
from-
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a Chummy is such a credible character, and Miranda will be probably the last person to say it, but she's so different, and it's a character that has so much warmth and quite a lot of sadness to her as well, and a real strong faith, and she's very complex, and I think Miranda does a really incredible job at bringing her to life, and is really, just perfectly cast. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Did she bring a different energy to it coming from a comedy background, do you think? Or
I think there was, fun between scenes. We had a lot of laughs, but at the same time, there was no difference. I mean, it felt like working with another actress, to be honest. There was no...
Well, she has been an actress for a long time, and it's sort of where she always should have been, I think.
Question here.
How shocked were you when you first read about Conchita's story and some of the conditions that these women
I think if I'd have read the script without reading the book, I would have been like, this can't be true. Someone can't have 24 children. and then I was just sort of like, it just is. It's extraordinary. All of these stories are true, and cannot fathom it really. So and the conditions they live in, you know, they're tough, but all of the women face them with a real sort of it's a resilience and humour, and you just
They
just get on with it.
Yeah,
they just get on with it.
Sorry, you were just talking.
No. Come in.
I'm really sorry. I didn't know we'd begun. This is embarrassing.
Hello, sorry. Hello.
Hello. Sorry. Another question, please, from somebody. In the back.
Miranda, how was your first dramatic role? Did you enjoy it?
Very much, thank you. Yes. I suppose a lot of people say, "Oh, you doing the acting," but in many ways, it wasn't different to what I've done before. I always see myself very much more as a comedy actress than I do a stand-up. So it wasn't really that different. And playing Miranda in the sitcom's very heightened, but I'd done single-camera comedies before, so it wasn't really that different. It was just weird at the end of every take saying to the director, "That wasn't funny, was it?" As normally it's the reverse. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Sorry, anyone else? Oh, here we go.
Hello, Miranda. How did it feel to be handpicked by Jennifer Ware herself?
Yeah, it was amazing. Amazing to be. She sent me the book and said when I first saw you on telly, I thought of Chummy, so I was like, well, I've got to find out what this is. That's intriguing. So I flicked straight to Chummy's entrance in the book. Well, you would.
Yeah.
Don't lie that you don't look at a script and look at your character's name first. Don't lie about that. And read Chummy's entrance, and I thought, well, I really hope I get to play this brilliant, eccentric woman. I wouldn't want anyone else to play her. Yeah, so I was just thrilled. So, yeah.
Miranda, what are the similarities between Chummy and yourself, would you say?
We look alike. Height. And I don't know, it feels very different, actually. It feels, I suppose you could say, in terms of characters I've played before, that sort of fish out of water, but sort of plunged into a world that she doesn't really fit into, but not personally, I don't think.
Could I send that to all of you as well? So is there any comparisons you think between your characters and yourself? Helen, I know that you, just thinking fashion in particular, that you do have a certain style of your own. How did you feel about that? So I'm leading.
Wow. We had to get used to the underwear because, of course, we had to wear that day in, day out, and pointy bras.
Lift and separate.
Lift and separate. Suspenders every day. That was a new challenge as well. But
is that what you wear normally?
Every day. I've got them on now. Just for you. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't smoke though. So.
Jessica.
What was it? Similarities?
Yeah, I just wondered if you felt that there were any similarities between the characters and yourselves.
Jenny comes in and it was a kind of weird parallel experience because I was scared, as I mentioned before, and she's sort of entering this world, and she doesn't know what she's doing, so I didn't know what I was doing either, and it was, you know, that first scene that we shot, boiling some urine and talking about eclampsia. It's just like, I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh God! And it was, you know, that experience was similar. And she's quite private as a character, and doesn't really want to sort of. Trixie sort of gets it out of her, but she doesn't really want to talk about, you know, her this big love in her life that, you know. So I suppose I'm quite private in a similar kind of way. But.
Bryony.
I think Cynthia's more like a younger me, quite optimistic and hard-working, and Yeah, I've gone off.
Because you're so old now,
Brian. But you know that sort of kind of a bit more puppy, less. I'm not really helping myself.
I like this as puppy.
Yeah.
Puppy.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't one where you create a sort of imaginary suit and step into it and transform. So I suppose it was more of a little sidestep. Yes.
Okay. Oh, question over here.
Miranda, the bike riding scene. Did you have to pretend not to be able to ride a bike?
Yeah, well, I thought, well, that's an acting challenge, because apparently once you've learnt to ride a bike, you can never forget. So I was like, this is going to be challenging. But actually, it turns out, no offence, girls, but I was by far the best. They were really heavy old bikes.
With no gears.
With no gears at all. And so actually it worked out that I'm, though I set myself, and here's a showbiz exclusive, a natural cyclist. Because I had the real confidence to wobble about. Whereas Helen would have actually fallen over. So it was quite fun, yeah. I call it stunt work.
Question here.
How did it feel, because in other projects I know you've had much more control and you've directed things, to just be directed and to be taking on a role that someone else has created?
Oh, that was just one of the biggest joys of it, really. And Heidi, I'm not just saying this because she's right in front of me, but when I read Heidi's Chummy, I was like, oh, it's just amazing not to have to do anything or think about it and just go, well, that's it says everything and don't need to add or worry or, you know. So it was really freeing for me, and for 2.5 years, I think, I hadn't really done any other parts apart from what I had written. So it was a really nice shift for me, yeah. And being an ensemble cast as well and not have that pressure. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Miranda, how did you find the prosthetic babies? There must have been a comedy around there somewhere.
I don't know about you, I found them quite spooky.
Yeah, they're weird.
Real. They're really real. Very heavy. And I think when you're there wasn't much comedy in sort of delivering a baby. I mean, you had to really concentrate. With tough days, weren't they? To really concentrate.
Very, very intense, actually.
Yeah.
And there was it wasn't like giving birth. I mean, I've had babies, but there was a huge intensity in the room when we filmed those scenes because they were very difficult to do.
Yeah,
weren't they?
really difficult. Such concentration.
So it was sort of in another world in a way.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? It was funny.
Yeah. Now thinking about it, I can see why you've asked that question, because a prosthetic baby covered in baby oil, you would have thought comedy, but actually it was just quite terrifying learning how to deliver it and hold it, and quite intense.
Okay. Oh, question here.
Miranda, has this given you an appetite to do more drama, or is this going to be a one-off for you?
Oh, I've always wanted to, as I said, I've always wanted to act, really. I mean, comedies, I suppose, will always be my first passion. But absolutely, I think it would be amazing if I had the luck to have a career where I could do both, because I think doing the drama gave me a really nice respite from the quite technical and serious side of and the pressure of getting a laugh. And so if I can have that respite and do something completely different, and then that sort of then gives me the joy to go back to writing again.
Do you think the success of your comedy has made people a little bit reluctant to maybe think of you when it comes to serious roles?
Possibly. I'm sure if you play Miranda in Miranda, although I very much see that I'm playing a character, perhaps some people may think that I'm not acting. I don't know. I assure you I am. So I can answer that. I hope not, but I could see why people might. Yeah.
Also, a question over here. So.
What was it like walking onto the set and walking into a 1950s East End?
The sets were beautiful. I mean, really beautiful, and the colours were just incredible when you walked in. And it really sort of took you back there. It felt so real. especially when we did the things on location through the streets, the cycling scenes and all of those, with all the kids running around in their little ragged jumpers and you know, all the sheets laying out. It felt like we were just there. Great sets, really wonderful.
It was the biggest setups that I'd ever done, actually. With sort of did we have 100 extra?
Yeah. When you're walking
Really?
your first
walking through the docks, yeah.
And cycling through them all, it felt like a film. It was amazing.
Yes. With the train and everything, it was incredible.
It was exactly how I'd pictured it, which I don't think happens very often. You sort of read a book and you've got it in your head, but it's Eve, isn't it? Eve Stewart.
Yeah.
Who is just phenomenal. I mean, and the detail of the set, and that kitchen, with the Horlicks and all of these pots and cakes and biscuits and stuff. Yeah, and imagine people watching this on a Sunday night. You have to have a cake on hand because you just
it's all we do.
Yeah,
just eat cake.
Oh, really good
That's
cake.
a contractual thing of mine.
And really 50s food, you know, like ham and boiled eggs and salad and I don't know, like stuff. My gran had that laid out on the table, and you just
Sunday night supper.
Yeah, it's great.
Where did you film? In fact, different places, because I know Poplar quite well, and a lot of it has changed so much. So you have
The outdoors stuff. Some of it we filmed in East London, and lots filmed in Chatham, because there's a dock. Yeah, and you CGI, didn't you? Some of the background stuff. And then we had this amazing college in Mill Hill, which is a sort of derelict space, but transformed by incredible people into the convent. And this beautiful corridor with this striking windows with light coming down. It was great.
It was actually a former Jesuit seminary, which I always found marvellous. I thought if ever a building needed an injection of female energy, it had to be St Joseph's in Mill Hill. And I did often wonder what the long gone Jesuits must have thought about what was going on in their space, actually.
Miranda, how much knowledge about being a midwife did you pick up, and would you feel confident if someone went into labour?
No, I would not feel remotely confident. You don't. It didn't really pick up, any, obviously none of the technical side particularly, but just the I suppose the intensity of what they go through, because when you're presented with the 5-day-old baby, or I don't know, were they 5? They were young, little. You know, you realise. I mean, I've never had a child or been, around such young. Just what an amazing thing it is. So I suppose their concentration, their level of care, what kind of angels really they were in that day, particularly. So that sense of duty and honour and that real vocation picked up on, but certainly not past the forceps, please. Stop level of it.
We asked the others this, but did it make you feel broody in any way? With the babies and so on?
No, I was sort of too. I was too kind of in the moment, or thinking about the technical side of it. I think. Yeah, and then one did piss in my glove, so straight down. And I thought, no thanks.
Sorry, question here.
One of the really nice things about the first episode, at least, was it's a really warm friendship between the midwives. Does that continue? There doesn't seem any kind of competition or bitchiness or anything like that.
I think they're all quite supportive of each other, and fundamentally they are there as a vocation, and they're there to get on with the work. And yes, there are sort of inner dramas that happen with men coming in and all of those things, but they're friends through and through, and there's support. There's a strong network of support through all the, even though there's the tensions with the older nuns and things, there's still a sense of love between them as well.
I suppose that had to be really.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's no room for any bitchiness, because you're so tired. I sort of, you've got to remember they're going out on their bikes. What was it, 8 square miles you say? Of East London, and it's tough East London. It's not, Columbia Road now is very nice, but it's rough, and there are meths drinkers and everywhere, and there's no, and they're so all of them, which I thought was so refreshing, in the scripts is they're so empathic, not only with each other but with all of the women. And you don't often see that. You put girls in a TV series and you pit them against each other. I was just like, oh, thank God, because it's not actually like that, you know. Sometimes it is, but it's like,
not for me.
Yeah. It was, you know, there's a real heart and a real love, and I think you get that in the script and from the book and through them. Yeah.
Question here.
I just wanted to ask Miranda, Chummy seems like a lovely character, but not someone you think of immediately as midwife. Did you find out how she's got into it?
Well, she it was a calling really for her. She just, it's just as simple as that. Just no, it's just what I know about her. It's just, I suppose, like we all, you know, something that makes your heart skip, and what she felt. Well, I think she felt that God wanted her there, that was the next step in her life, really.
And is she very good at it? Is she really good at her job?
She's a very, very compassionate person. That's what she's best at, really. Is she takes her time to get into it. It's not necessarily an easy ride, but yeah. Don't want to give too much away.
Another question from anybody? Oh, one here.
Were there any moments where you were surprised by how sort of graphic it was? I mean, there was a couple of moments where, maybe a bloke thing, but I sort of winced when the babies were being born. Were you surprised by that? And do you think viewers will sort of do the same at any stage?
I hope so. I want them to wince a bit, but every birth is different, and they're not all, you know. I don't know. They're all pretty traumatic. Well, I don't know.
Well, births are, you know, they're not pretty. You know, they're not. They just, and there's a certain sense of that. But it's very modest. Everything's covered up as it was in the 50s. There's no sort of flesh on show. There's no sort of, you know, funny shots or anything like that. It's sensitively done, and as it was in the 50s, they weren't, you know, free about showing their bodies in childbirth as we maybe are now. It was very demure still.
Yeah, I remember really wanting it to just be real, and not prettify it or not make it really gruesome, and just make it real, and you're gonna wince. So, I think that's real.
Any other questions? Oh, there's another one here.
Because the books have got such a following, like you were saying you read them yourself, did you feel there was a pressure to do justice to the stories, to the characters?
Massively, yeah.
And because they're real people as well, so the, you know, sort of legacy, and particularly with Jennifer passing away just before we started shooting, really that was quite a prolific thing for us and quite a heavy pressure. I mean, we met the Worths, they came on set quite a few times, so it was really lovely to you know, see the journey of her work go onwards.
Okay, question back.
Jessica, you're going to be in people's living rooms every week from now on. I just wondered if you thought about how that's kind of going to be being recognised out and about. Do you kind of worry about that at all? Kind of losing that anonymity a little bit?
It's crossed my mind, but I'm choosing just to ignore it for a while. We'll see what happens. Yeah. I don't know.
Anybody else? Oh, one last question.
And there are 3 books, obviously. I know some of the stories have been taken from those books and mashed together, if you like, for this series. But I mean, if it's successful, which I'm sure it will be, you know, could there be more series of it?
Heidi?
Well, we'd very much like to think so. We haven't used all of the material at all. In fact, there was a couple of stories that we deliberately kept back because we felt they were so powerful that we didn't want to shoehorn them in. We wanted to make sure that in due course they got their opportunity to breathe. You know, Jennifer did write a trilogy, of stories, and it was about district nursing as well as midwifery. So there is actually quite a lot of material. And when I was working on the books, one of the things I found fascinating, it reminded me a little bit of when I was working on Cranford, because it is a memoir. It jumps backwards and forwards in time, and sometimes you'll find half a page of Jennifer's memoirs that give you almost an episode's worth of drama. And at other times there might be something sprawled out over 3 chapters, which is actually a little bit more delicate, and you need to compress it to make it work within an hour of television. But we have deliberately kept some stuff back, and I think we'd all love to have another chance. So fingers crossed.
Well, I think that's it, unless there's any last burning questions. No, thank you very much.
No, I was late as well.
Oh, hello, Maureen. I was about to say, because I didn't speak in person, because I recognised your face as well, of course. And do sit down. Well, it is amazing, isn't it? Yes, they were, because the nurses' training would begin at age 18 and last for 3 years. And then, as we depict in this, they would go and do their midwifery training, which would be 6 months in hospital and then 6 months in practice. So you really were talking about fully qualified midwives at age 22. But interestingly,
oh, hello, hi, oh, nice to meet you. Funny that we haven't met. You look lovely. Hello. Good, yeah. Have you just come in? No, I was at a screening. This is Alex, who works for us as well. Hello. Women working. So you've got a video as well. So I think we're from with PA. Today. Yes. So it's going to be I think they would have been, because and I got an itinerary for my sector today. These aren't promiscuous girls. When do you work? Next a week on Saturday. I know, I can imagine the worst. It's good. It's all good. That's great. Thank you so much. No problem at all. I really enjoyed it. It's good to see you. I better not be there. Cool. And I'll see you in a bit then. And I said, oh, well, I'll be a doctor then. And she don't look clever enough to be a doctor. So that was my medical career then. Couldn't win. No, that's how it ended up doing this. But I've always been very, very interested in nursing. I have with Sarah who's continued nursing and is now a senior practitioner. I'm just perpetually impressed by nurses. Not least because they provide a human interface with medicine in a way that doctors don't necessarily. They do have to bridge that gap, so they have to be incredibly multi-skilled. And also, as midwives, you're with women at the most vulnerable time of their life. People say you never forget your midwife, and I think every woman who has children could give you chapter on verse on that woman in the modern day, probably over the periods of their life.
Do you have children yourself?
I have a 7, almost 15.
Yeah. It'll be 15 January.
Christmas, yes, he's a Christmas baby. So.
Okay, what's his name?
Dominic.
That's fine. So it sort of took you back reading the book and kind of adapting to this.
Oh gosh. Well,
what was your own experience?
My own experience of childbirth. Oh god. Actually, should I tell you the honest truth?
Set up the camera.
I
don't know what's best really.
Yeah, I found it. It's doing the costumes. Okay.
Maybe I'll just grab my stuff.
All my own publicity, because they keep telling you you're doing really well. And so you can imagine that you're really good at this, and then